is if you present it as an option and then they feel like that's the option, it's easy for them to push back. But if you present it as an idea, then they're going to tell you no, but the reason why. And so that reason why becomes how you could sell them. And so if you're like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not really caring about my credit score, I just want the lowest rate. Got it. I thought you'd say that, and now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet with and this just means you need to reprice it, right?
Yeah.
But you're not showing your full cards out there. Because if you show your full cards and they say no, they said no to themselves.
Connected to Sales Remastered.
Yeah, so that one was interesting. That one was a past client. Basically told me, hey, I want to pay off some debts. I just retired, right? So went over the numbers with them. He's like, okay, that sounds pretty decent, but I'm not sure if the savings is right there. Let me kind of think about it. So,
Sure.
okay. So it's okay, let's follow up tomorrow, but I went back over the benefits. Boom, 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 you know? And it was funny, so I hit him up, hey, you know, you told me to give you a call back today at this time. I'll be giving you a call. Were there any questions you had up front? And so, you know what, I'm shopping and going with somebody else, right? So, okay, you know, what are they offering that kind of piqued your interest? So this guy, I don't know really what to go off with this one. He basically, I want the lowest rate, right? So I gave him the benefit. We waived a lot of fees. He was happy with it. They're offering him, I think, 3/8 lower. They're charging him $12,000 in cost.
Okay.
And so he's like, yeah, that seemed kind of pretty high. I'm like, well, it is high, you know. So I explained to him, and because the cost is so much, even with the lower rate, the payment's actually $25 more because they're rolling in all that fees.
Right.
So the loan amount's higher, right?
Right.
So I was like, hey, you know what? One thing that I noticed with, you know, everybody wants a lower rate, they want a lower payment. Is that what you know, are relating to with the lower rate? Is absolutely. I said, well, the funny thing I noticed is even with that lower rate, because they have so many fees, their payment's actually higher than mine by $25 a month.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? He goes, well, I like the lower rate, so yeah, it does make sense to me. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so sometimes you just figure that out, right?
Yeah, so I said, okay, well...
You know what he does for work?
Huh?
You know what he does for work?
He just retired. He was a police officer for like 30 years, so
Okay.
I can kind of tell he doesn't trust anybody. That's kind of where he came from as a police officer,
Sure.
you know? So he's like, yeah, you know, everybody tells me their deal's better than mine, but I don't know who to go with, so he goes, I like the lower rate, that's what I want, so I kind of established that he's not budging on that, so he's okay in his mind paying $12,000 to save $80 a month, you know?
Sure.
I can't get around that. So I said, okay, well, let's do this. If I can see that offer, I'll make sure to give you the lower rate with lower cost, you know, so at least you're still getting the best benefit. So I'm waiting for him to kind of get back to me on that. But he's kind of, and then we've been text message. Last one, he's like, dude, this is getting so overwhelming. I don't even know if I want to move forward with anybody else. And that's kind of where we're at now with that file.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I can kind of pick out from that is that experience is that okay, so he's retiring or he's just retired?
From my understanding, I think he's retired for like 6 months.
Okay.
So recently.
Okay, and so he works with authority, right?
Yep.
Okay, so when you were talking it out, and obviously you got him up to the pitch table, there had been a point where they were like, you know what, let me think about it, right? And so if we can kind of backtrack from there and say, well, what led to that? What was the whole reason why they didn't say, okay, let's do this?
It was the rate, because he's currently at 3.75, right? So when I pitched him, I mean, what we gave him was like a 5.125 because the credit sucked.
Sure.
And FHA didn't make sense. FHA, the PMI was too high. It was a higher payment, right? So I didn't even pitch him FHA.
Wait, higher payment, he's just doing a rate term or cash out?
He's doing cash out to pay off debts.
Okay, so the payment was higher than his current mortgage payment, or the payment was higher than the current mortgage payment plus all the debt?
So FHA, with this, I mean, getting the cash to pay off all the debt because of the PMI, and the PMI was like 250, and the rate was still going to be like 4.5, 4.75. So
What was
FHA,
the total debt payment on the debt you're paying off?
not much. That's the thing. He's only paying off like 10 grand. So he's getting 10 grand cash to pay off those debts, and both those debts he can, if he just paid the minimum, he'd probably pay them off in a year and a half. But I could tell that's not going to work for him.
He's going back to 30?
He's going back to a 30.
Okay, and he just retired, so he's like 65?
Something like that, 65, in the 60s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that you can plant in actually framing them up for the sale, right?
Okay.
And say, so you're going to notice these questions because the things you pick apart, like retired, you ask them questions like, when's the last time you pulled your credit, right? Do you remember what the score was? Oh yeah, 6. If it starts with a 6, you're like, oh, ooh, right? So you're kind of picking up these clues and then how you frame them to build anticipation where they're looking forward to your pitch. Not only that, but they're eager to give you the documents and start the process.
Yeah.
Is because you're teetering to things that apply to them. So I don't know if this went over in the pitch, but if it did, then good, you're doing good. But if it didn't, then consider it, okay? So if I knew that I was going into a pitch with a retired police officer, I'd consider a few things. Number one is the words that I use, right? Like I would say, hey, you know what? I help a lot of veterans in your county, right? Veterans, like if you coincide authority with veterans, they have a lot of respect with each other, right? Like, okay, this guy helps a lot of veterans, and then that's going to help me sell points and fees because veterans have to pay 3.3. So now I can compare his story to a couple of the veterans. Who doesn't like people that help veterans?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then also at the same time, allude to the fact that he's 65 and he's going to go back to a 30-year term, right? And say, you know, just like how I kind of build up the pitch and say, hey, you know what, I got an idea, I want to run it by you. This is when I unload it, right? And say, hey, you know what, I got an idea, I want to run it by you, Mr. Guerrero. You know what, I've been helping a lot of veterans within your area, and what I've noticed is that the property values are doing pretty good. And so, in case you don't know, like veterans, they're able to access more equity. And in your case, you don't necessarily need that. You only need $10,000. But here's the thing: is that because I'm a direct servicer for VA, I'm also a direct servicer for FHA, Fannie Mae, or Freddie Mac, or whatever applies to them, right? And say that would be the only reason why you would use me is because I don't charge broker points and fees. Plus, we don't sell our loan. Does that make sense? And so then, because they hear like, well, the only reason why you would use me, right? And then they listen in whatever comes on after that. And so that's a point for them to absorb the bare bones of it, right?
Yeah.
And so when they hear it, then it's like, okay, well, it makes sense. I'm already there. I'm avoiding broker fees, broker points, or what have you. And say, what I found is that I can actually help protect you, right? And I'm using words that police officer is very kind of bonded with, right? Like they have a tie to, right? Like, and so I've been serving, right, veterans within your area.
Yeah.
Right, I've found that within your community, in order to protect yourself, right, in order to those type of words would come out within the pitch, and right, and so right, and so like, well, you know, the reason why I want to run this by you is because I know you want the lower rate, and I wanted to ask you a question before it begins because I can bring your rate all the way down to 3.75, and that's the bottom line rate on the rate sheet, right, and say, but here's the thing. What I found was that because you're only pulling $10,000 out and we're going back to a 30-year loan, ultimately that's going to leave you in line to pay this house off when you're 95. Is that what you want when you're 95? Do you want to walk out to the mailbox, right? And I'm using words like, can you vision yourself 95? And so then they're going to own up and say, well, the likelihood of me, you know, paying this house off is slim. Okay, so at least I got them to that reality, right? And say, well, you're going to be here for at least 10 or 15 years, right? And he's going to be like, yeah, okay, here's my idea. Is your FICO has been weighed down because of these funds, because of this revolving debt. And so I wanted to ask you, I'm sure you want to pay this debt off. How much are you paying towards the credit cards right now? And then they're going to say 150. Oh, is that the minimum? Or is that a little bit overdue? And then you're going to say, oh, that's just the bare minimum. I see. Now, the thing is, though, is that you retired. So it's not like you can put in a little bit of overtime to pay above that. So here's my idea, is that in order to protect your FICO, right, and then put yourself in a position where you can take command and control of your finances and your budget, and you can demonstrate that you can conform your existing liabilities to something that's more affordable to your fixed income. Because the last thing you want to do is go into this unprotected, especially when you don't have, you know, the income, the same amount of income, and then you want to compare it too, right? Because like firemen, sometimes policemen are actually making more, right? When they're retired, you're like, damn, bro, how'd that happen? Yeah. And so, you know, you want to pay attention to that, right? But you want to set it up in a way and make them feel like it's an idea, because what happens is if you present it as an option and then they feel like that's the option, it's easy for them to push back. But if you present it as an idea, then they're going to tell you no, but the reason why. And so that reason why becomes how you could sell them. And so if you're like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not really caring about my credit score, I just want the lowest rate, got it. I thought you'd say that, and now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet with and this just means you need to reprice it, right?
Yeah.
But you're not showing your full cards out there. Because if you show your full cards and they say no, they said no to themselves. And him, a little bit like, he's in a position where he feels that he can get his way, right? And that's why it doesn't make sense. That's why it doesn't make sense to us that he's willing to go for the lower rate, even though it costs him more. He's just got pride. It's just ego, right? That's his uniform talking. It's like, I don't care about that. This is the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's it, talking out loud. And say, hey, you know what? I can appreciate that, but here's the thing: is that they're charging you X amount of dollars, and if you really want that low rate, let's do this. I can show you how to get it cheaper, right? So let me do this. My manager's going to ask me for a full doc, but I'm going to let him know that you're a retired police officer, right? And that all you're trying to do is pull out $10,000, and the last thing you want to do is pay more than you need to for a refinance. And he's going to be like, yeah, okay, cool. And then put all the weight back on your manager and say, hey, you know what? My manager's going to ask me for something. He's going to ask me for a few documents. How fast can you get me this, this, and this, right? And then gauge him and say, well, it just depends on where because sometimes they're just not going to move, right? Like they're no matter what you do.
So you tell me what you have first.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So, and say, well, and there's a good way to answer that. So even if he said, well, I'm not going to send you anything until you show me what you got, and say, well, that's the thing, is the only thing I could show you is what you qualified for. However, if you want to speak to lenders that just give you very vague and general information, then you always have that option, but you're just going to be in for a long ride, right? You're just going to gather a lot of data. The only thing that I could show you, because I'm a direct servicer, is what you qualified for. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, is that saves you the most time, because I'm not fluffing anything, right? I'm not leading you down a path, making you pay for an appraisal for something that you don't even need, or something that's going to change, right? And say, paying these points may have made sense when you were working because you had the tax write-off, but now you're retired, so it makes no sense. So you're taking your fixed income, raising your payment, and you're not going to get anything back for that, right? So let me show you how to do it. If you're willing to put your money, towards this low rate, even though it increases your payment when you're on a fixed income, let me protect you, right? And then kind of go in it that way. Okay. But especially with like authority figures or like managerial roles, that's very effective. They'd be like, hey, I have an idea. I want to shoot some things back and forth with you real quick before I send out these disclosures, right? Even though that's how all my pitches start, I believe that's probably the best way to do it, but it's even more effective with people of authority, right? Because they just want to kind of, they want to hear what you came up with, and if they feel deep down inside that you're wrong, they're going to call you out on it. Mm-hmm. And they're going to say, yeah, you know what, I don't like that because I want blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Right, whatever that blah 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 is, then you now know how to approach it. Yeah. Whereas if we go in and say, hey, I got a couple options, we don't know how to approach it yet. That's why we're kind of throwing out those options. Yeah. Does that make sense?